I'm Chip Townsend, and this is the Team Chip Podcast. Do you have good intentions to plan? You know, they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and then maybe not getting it done. If they don't get in front of your team so that your team can buy in and understand what the goals are and kind of the why and how it impacts them, and these goals are just wishes, they're hopes. It's just so important that everybody knows what they're doing and what part they play in the bigger picture. Welcome back to the Team Chip Podcast. Again, super excited to be here with you guys. Got a little solo episode for you today. Going to run through some thoughts on how to make next year like your most focused, profitable, impactful. And remember, hope is not a strategy. You know, just flying by the seat of your pants, that's not the way it works. So just want to try to share some nuggets with you guys to encourage you along. I also want to encourage you, if you're listening sometimes and you're like, man, there's so many things. You're right. Running a business is complex, and being an entrepreneur can be very complex, etc. But, you know, sometimes we're talking about metrics, numbers, you know, reviewing your information, stuff like that. And you might be like, I don't have any of that information. I started running my business. I took off. It's taken off, and I'm kind of scrambling to keep up. It's okay. All of us have felt that way at some point in time, most likely in our business. Start now and start tracking. So it's okay if you feel behind the eight ball. And if some of this is elementary for you, cool. Move on to the next thing. And maybe you'll pick up just a nugget that helps to inspire you to tighten up, to, you know, so your business can serve better, serve you, your family, your clients, your city, etc. So anyway, welcome to the podcast. I hope you guys are enjoying this. Something that most great leaders do at the end of every year is they go into kind of a time of reflection and review. They're going back through and they're kind of looking at what worked, what didn't, and they're thinking about, you know, how do we implement and improve for next year? You know, most of the time that's what we're doing. So, you know, the question I have for you right now is, are you planning next year, or again, kind of going to fly by the seat of your pants? Or do you have good intentions to plan? You know, they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and then maybe not getting it done. So I just wanted to encourage you, maybe hold you accountable, make a plan, and let's get clear. It's about clarity, not just goal setting, but clarity on what we want, and then mapping a path to real results. We need to be clear, make a path, make a map, and direct ourselves in a way that matters. So, you know, some of the things I've already kind of mentioned, but the first step is reflecting. You reflect on the last year. I'm going to throw some kind of generic things at you to kind of get you thinking a little bit if you haven't thought about this, but, you know, what worked, what didn't. You know, maybe think of like 3 big wins from last year, you know, events you had, or, you know, things that you did in your organization or your business that helped you to succeed, that were impactful in a positive way. You know, think about what was the cost in time? What was the cost in energy and money? Was it worth it? You know, review those things and kind of think back through and sit down and write those things out. Like, you know, in February, we had this event. It brought us in some great traffic. And then in, you know, June, we had this event and it was great for retention and relations, et cetera. And kind of think through those things again, and what worked, what did not. You know, think about, like, if you're in a martial arts school, what did your students respond to best? You know, what worked, seemed to work well for them and serve what their needs are. What did your staff or your team respond to best? So anyway, kind of beating the horse there a little bit, but, you know, review and reflect. And this is where I would also say, make sure that you've taken notes, you've jotted down. We do something in our organization called an event report. So every time we have an event, no matter really how big or how small that event is, we create a Google sheet for the year, and we create a tab for each event through the year, and we just build it as the year goes. And we have these back for years. You know, if we had a black belt test prep event, how many people showed up, who showed up, what locations they came from, what the cost was for them. Did it generate revenue or not generate revenue? Did it help to prepare them? You know, we take some notes in there, and then in this review and reflect time, we go back and we kind of skim back through those event reports and go, what was powerful and what was not. So if you get a nugget, I would encourage you to be creating some small, simple reports to jot down notes after your events, the things that matter. Again, if it was a retention event, how did that flow? How did the team feel? How did the students, handle that? How did that go for you? So just encourage you to have something to go back on and review and reflect. And again, if you haven't started doing that, just start now. It's okay. It's not a real big thing, but remember, by reviewing the truth, the real results and the real metrics, we get to a truth, and truth can give you direction, so that you can make better decisions. The next thing is I would encourage you guys to do is, define your focus. Many times through the years, and we actually still do this. We kind of pick one word or one mission, like what's a word that's impactful for us? When we try to do everything, we end up doing really nothing well, nothing with excellence. So maybe pick a word that helps drive you towards your mission and direction. What I mean by that is like one year we wanted momentum to kind of be our thing. We had some good momentum going coming into the year, and we said, hey, let's make our word unstoppable. And all of our events and all of our staff trainings and everything, we kind of themed that unstoppable in there with the team. Like, guys, we have great momentum. What do we do to keep it unstoppable? One year, I felt like we had not been consistent on tracking our events or tracking our metrics or, whatever that was. And so one year our word became consistency. Can we just really nail things down, get systemized, and be consistent? And so consistency was our word. And we use that to kind of guide our direction in the events and our meetings, our staff meetings, our instructor meetings. And you want to try to make everything you do, if you choose to pick a word to kind of focus on, and this word can vary so much depending on where you're at in the life of your business. I'll tell you, for a couple of years now, I've kept the same word. It's legacy, because we're kind of in a mature business that's been here for several years, and we're aging and maturing. And so we're looking at it as, how does this create a legacy for our clients? How does this create a legacy for our team? How do we leave something behind that is of value for our family, our team, and the students who choose to be a part of our organization and the affiliates that we have out there? How do we create a legacy? So that legacy thought process kind of drives and helps to drive us to make better decisions and to plan, again, our events, set goals, and some things like that. So I encourage you guys to get focused. So review, focus, set some SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. SMART is actually an acronym. Specific, make your goals specific, set a number. Don't go, we want to gain some students. Let's gain 20 students this quarter, this month, this year, whatever that is. Be specific. Measurable. We can count how many active students we have, so it's very measurable. You can count revenue. You could count expenses cut. So there's just so many things you could do with this, but make it measurable. Make it achievable. Sometimes we kind of think, oh man, I want to grow by 100 students this year. It's probably not realistic and probably not achievable, because as you grow, there's always a hole in the bucket where there's some fall off too. So you've got to be realistic. And this is where, again, not to beat it up too much, the power of having some good metrics and numbers and event reports to review to kind of see where you are. Make those goals relevant. Now, remember, we're talking about the SMART acronym: specific, measurable, achievable. Make the goals relevant back to that theme word maybe that you picked, or relevant to your motto, mission, and belief statement. Make it relevant. And then lastly, make it time bound. So set goals for periods for, and obviously we get more granular and talk short-term, mid-term, long-term, but you want to set goals and put a deadline. In this month, we want to add X amount of revenue, or we want to add X amount of students. In this quarter, X amount of whatever, in this year. And so I encourage you just to think, make sure you're setting some goals. And there's some areas in your business, there's really kind of a dichotomy to your business. There's the operational piece back here, and then there's the administrative piece, or the office. So we kind of have the mat in the office. So goals around the office might be, again, monthly revenue, watching expenses and maybe trimming, or building a pad, some sort of savings fund. Uh, it could be a bonus structure that you want to work on and improve through the year, but set goals around things that are kind of attached to the operation of the business and the financial piece of the business in the office. Then there's the mat. Maybe have goals around, if you don't have an instructor meeting, start one. If you don't have a staff meeting, start one. Now, hear me, this is a whole different episode. Don't have meetings just for the sake of meetings. Make them productive and make them powerful. Make them meaningful to your team. Uh, but it's set goals, and again, there's goals around the mat. Developing your leadership and demo team, etc. Improvement with the instructors. There's just so many things you can set goals around. Now, this I do want to say. I'm going to say it again towards the end here, but set 2-3 really solid goals. Don't get so many goals on the plate that you don't. Again, we're trying to do everything and we're doing nothing, right? So be cautious with that. You might even set some goals, just another kind of thought for you around, community outreach. What are you doing in the community? Are you doing reading programs at the school, high fives at the schools? Is your demo team getting demos done around things like that? And remember, when you set goals, if they don't get on your calendar, and I really want to emphasize this one, if they don't get in front of your team so that your team can buy in and understand what the goals are and kind of the why and how it impacts them, man, these goals are just wishes. They're hopes. So make sure that you get the goals documented, and then through the year in your meetings that you're going back and checking progress against the goals. All of this matters so much. I know this because we in the early days did not set goals. We didn't understand the power of it. We did not track metrics well. We did not do these things well. And that's why we had a hard time sometimes breaking 100 active students or 125. And when you did, it was like, wow, it's world changing for you. And now with where we are at over 1,000 students collectively in our organization, we got there because we began to understand these fundamentals and put them to work and actually apply them. Are we perfect at it? We are far from perfect. Every year we're going, we missed the boat on that one a little bit. We didn't track that well. So we're constantly having to work. So please don't hear this as like, we have something of perfection going. Far from it. We're constantly looking for how can we improve and what was the lesson that we learned in that. So just make sure when you set those SMART goals, you get them in front of the team, you get them on paper, you get them in front of your own eyes so you see them consistently so you can move in that direction. The next thing kind of ties into that is map out your calendar for the next year. Look back at the previous year's calendar and hopefully you have things documented. We did testing here. We did a prep class here. We did a parents' night out here. We did this here. This is this. And map out your big events for the entire next year. Get it in front of the team. Let them have a little voice in that mapping out so that they can sit and see it and go, oh man, oh wait, I'm still in high school. So on that weekend, that's bad for me. And you can make adjustments with your team and they get to feel a part of that as well. But I just can't emphasize enough. Get everything on the calendar. Staff meetings, staff trainings, events and tournaments, testing cycles, any kind of breaks and holidays. That way you can also be communicating that out early so that there's no miscommunications or minimize those. I feel like we'll always have miscommunications, but we're always trying to minimize miscommunications. Also don't forget cyclical, marketing pushes, back to school time, summertime's coming, a new year is coming. So, be thinking about those, get your calendar right and get your plan in place. So, review, set a focus, set the goals, get them documented on some kind of calendar, align your team, get your staff bought into what you're doing. Now, I want to go back to goals really quickly for just a second and talk about this. I try very hard not to just set goals and walk in and go, all right, guys, this is what we're going to do. I do set some numbers and ranges, and then I sit down with our core team and go, guys, how do y'all feel about this? Do y'all feel this is something we can accomplish and achieve? Are you comfortable that we can push to this level? And get their voice a little bit. And sometimes you might be surprised at how they go, oh yeah, we can kill that. Or sometimes they might go, I feel like that's stretching us a little too much. And we go, okay, let's back off that just a little bit. We don't want them to be totally comfortable at all, but we want goals to stretch us. But get the team bought in. If you just throw together numbers and throw them in front of the team, their skin is not in the game. They don't feel like they're a part of that. and help them again. I've already said this, but understand the why of the goals and how that's impactful for them. If we reach these numbers, then this year's profit share bonus is going to be this. That benefits all of you. That, tie those things together so that they can see that. So getting the team bought in, once you kind of have a rough draft of goals for your year, because you're probably, if you're the leader of the business, you're looking at those metrics and kind of tracking them all along. And if you haven't been, I encourage you to start. But you have the best idea maybe where you can go and where you feel you can go, where the market's going and where the community is moving, etc. Share those goals, get their, get their buy-in on those things. Share that focus word that you came up with. Hey guys, we're thinking legacy. How does legacy impact the team? So you might ask that question. When I explain that to the guys, I'm like, look, we're looking at how we systemize this in a way that if you decided to go run your own location, boom, here's the plug and play and how you can do that. And you have a future now, and you could spend your life doing something you absolutely love and not have to go learn all the hard lessons that we've had to learn and get our teeth kicked in a few times. So, apply those, help them to see how those words, those focus words, or that mission, motto, and belief statement, how that applies to them so that they can feel a part of it. Make sure you're assigning ownership. Hey, in this area, we need to hit this. Okay, this is our program directors. Are you guys on board? Do you understand? And how do y'all feel about that? Do you feel we can make this happen? Oh, yes, sir, we can do that. Okay, awesome. Chief instructors, you're going to kind of head up, the retention for sure by creating great class plans and, communicating with the parents and students about events and those things. And just make sure you're assigning kind of who's responsible for what areas so that they know where those, and it's just so important that everybody knows what they're doing and what part they play in the bigger picture. That's huge. Remember, if you're a small business school, martial arts school, and, kind of a solopreneur, you can carry everything. But as you grow, you can't carry the whole thing and continue to improve and grow without overextending yourself. And you really need to get your team's buy-in to create great momentum and get things moving forward. So now we've kind of got their buy-in. I want to encourage you to protect that buy-in and protect the goals you set by, and I've said it a little bit earlier, but going back and having check-ins, check in with them. How are we doing? Goal versus reality, and have meetings with those guys to kind of track progress. How are you doing in your area and the direction that you're moving? But use good data, attendance numbers, revenue retention, all those things. Be tracking that stuff so you have good numbers to sit down with them. Because I will tell you, sometimes what we feel and think in our mind is really kind of far from the truth. Like, I feel like all of our yellow belts are quitting. And you go and you look in your CRM and realize, gosh, our yellow belts are great. It's the orange belts that are all quitting. Sometimes you can be off in what you think or feel. That's why it's important to bring real good numbers to do your check-ins and reviews so that everyone's on the same page. And then celebrate wins, quarterly, monthly, however you want to do that. But make sure you celebrate and celebrate with the team and let them feel good about what they've been a part of accomplishing. Because if they're actually doing their part, they are huge contributors to that big picture success. And you need to make sure that those guys understand that. Remember, too, in those check-in meetings, sometimes there's course corrections, which are normal. You kind of go, man, that was a little far out there. I don't think we're going to reach it. Do we want to bring that down just a touch? Or, hey, we're about to run that goal over and we're only halfway through this cycle. We want to bump that up and let's challenge ourselves a little bit to go a little further. So remember, the Apollo rockets that went to the moon hardly ever really aimed at the moon. They were flying, but what they were doing was making constant adjustments as they flew. And the closer they got, the more likely they were aiming at the moon. So course corrections are perfectly good and perfectly normal. So remember, guys, your next year doesn't happen by accident. It gets better by design. I encourage y'all, take some action now. If you haven't been tracking metrics, start now. If you haven't been keeping little event reports for your events through the year, start now. If you haven't been building a calendar for the next year for your big events, please do, because your team will appreciate so much knowing in 3 months this event's going to happen. It helps you because they're not last minute shuffling and trying to prepare. And get off of out of a school activity or something so they can be there for the event. So you're not feeling pressure. It just takes so much of the pressure off when we prepare ahead. Schedule a team meeting now to get your heads together for next year. So take some action on these things, track, build the calendar, write things down and be prepared. So get clarity on your next year. I can't emphasize it enough. And again, the reason I'm kind of passionate about this, because we went years without clarity at times, just kind of flying by the seat of our pants and like, yeah, we made that work. It's like, how do we make it work? How well did it work? You don't want to do that to yourself. Remember, get your calendar kind of built out before you have chaos. It's calendar before chaos. Make sure you're handling that calendar. Team before burnout. Share the mission. Everyone helps to carry the load together. So just encourage you to plan for the next year. Okay. I'm going to kind of run back through these things and just share, make sure that you reflect on the last year, define your focus, get your kind of word, your mission for the year, your rallying battle cry kind of put together. Set clear goals. We talked about SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. Map out your calendar now. Get that calendar built for the next year. Get your team in alignment. Get their buy-in on the goals. Hear their voice. Let them have a voice on their goals. Set up an accountability system. Have check-in meetings, have staff meetings, and instructor and training meetings, so that everyone, and in those meetings, get reports back. How is that coming along? How are we doing on that goal over there? And all of our meetings, at some level, we review some of our goals so it stays in front of the team at all times. And then lastly, just take action, make it happen. Most of us know what we need to do, but we just fail to be disciplined to do it. So I just want to encourage you, get disciplined and get it done, because you can. And if you do, life gets so much better, and operating that business gets so much, I don't know if I'd say easier, but easier in ways. So just encourage you to get out there and do it. I hope that helped. You got some nuggets from that. Let us know what you want to hear about, what you want to talk about, but I just really want you to plan your next year, and let's have a killer year by design, not by hope. All right, guys, like it, love it, and subscribe to it, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you for tuning into the Team Chip Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget, subscribe, share, and or leave a review, because we need you. We appreciate you so much. And without you, we can't make this happen. Remember, consistency is the key to success. So go out there and never be outworked.